Hey everybody, welcome to Saturday morning with Final Fantasy XVI at Disaster Relief Done Quick by GDQ. I'm moonblazewolf. I use he, they pronouns, and I'm really excited to show this game off today. I believe this is the first time Final Fantasy XVI has been in a GDQ event or kind of like a major charity marathon, so I can't wait to show this off. It is a really cool, we'll call it a cross-section of what the full game has to offer. And I have three fantastic commentators who are going to be your guides through this journey because I'm going to be mainly focused on playing the game. So commentary crew, would you please introduce yourselves?
Sure. I'm the Cid. I usually run the story of this, and I know just enough to be dangerous.
I'm Mtbanger. I run New Game Plus of this, but I also have gone through this DLC a few times. Big fan of it.
Sure, have me go last. I'm Woadyb. I have run the demo %, and for a while there, I was learning the full game. I have not played this DLC yet because I've been busy running 7 Rebirth for the last 8 months.
Yeah, it's been a good time for action-based Final Fantasy games, but I really want to show everybody what Final Fantasy XVI has to offer. This game did just come out on PC, so if you're interested, please check it out. It is really, really good. It's my favorite Final Fantasy since 10, and that is saying a lot. So we did have the bid war for the voiceover language. Could I please get the winner of the bid war, please, spef?
The winner of the bid war is Spanish.
Oh my goodness. I've actually never heard the Spanish voiceover for this, so this is going to be interesting. Oh, crap. Hold on. That is a problem. I did not anticipate.
Wait, does that change all of the dialogue in the menus?
That is not... Okay, that is not going to work.
We're about to find out.
Well, actually, hold on. I do... Okay, let's see. Okay, that's not going to work.
Oh, yeah. Rough.
Shoot. All right.
That's so weird.
So much dialogue. I guess they have to download it when you need it.
I am very embarrassed about this. I am really sorry. Oh, actually, hold on. Yeah. We can't do that. Do we have a second place? I've deeply apologize, but I did not anticipate this.
We do have a second place. Second place is English, which it seems you already have downloaded.
Okay.
Which is fantastic. This will be Spanish in our hearts.
I'm so sorry, everybody. How big was the gap?
The gap was $24.
Okay, I'm gonna personally donate $25 after the run is over to make up for that, as in a way that I can. So I'm really sorry about that. The one thing I will say about this, which I'm very excited about, is we will get to hear the wonderful voice acting of one Ben Starr during this run. So that is a plus. But I should probably go ahead and get going here. So I'm going to go ahead and get my file loaded, and then I will let you know when it is time to actually start the timer. Learn something new every day, right?
Yeah. Honestly, that's the first I've run into, too.
Yeah, I have done the Japanese because I thought the Japanese voice acting was also really interesting. But yeah, that's on me, so I apologize for that. All right, time is going to start when I heed the mysterious request. So let's go ahead and get things going in 3, 2, 1, go.
And we're off.
Yep.
We've read a letter. Very exciting.
Yeah.
Request heeded.
The DLCs kind of start up in a weird way where we have to do them through the missives, which a lot of people don't even know exist outside of the one time the game makes you check it. There's 2 or 3 side quests that's actually linked there that a lot of people miss because it's kind of in a awkward spot, honestly.
So we are going to jump right into some movement, and there's actually a little bit of tech, even in towns. There's going to be a lot of movement tech to talk about for the first couple minutes of this run. So does anybody want to talk about kind of like in-town movement?
Yeah, sure. So FF16's got quite a few modes of movement, I would say. some of that movement occurs in dungeons or in the overworld. Obviously, here we're talking about the town movement, which is pretty limited. As you can see, it involves a lot of bunny hopping, and then there's a hyper-precise tech called the oops, the oops bump tech, whereby if you run past an NPC and you bump into them, the animation that Clive plays when he sort of scoots past them moves him forward a few frames. It is riveting and exciting stuff, and it saves seconds, but that's what we're all about as speedrunners. Once you get outside of town, things get a little bit more spicy, although
we're going to use ambrosia for about 5 seconds here, so
this is the best movement in the game. Enjoy it while it lasts.
Enjoy the sound of a bird having a moment.
She loves it. It's fine.
At least it's a straight line, because everywhere else you have to go through these weird clogged up caves with rocks, and it's just like that movement never happens.
Yeah, there's a lot more of the frantic squawking in any percent, but unfortunately for this DLC we go into a faraway island, and while you can take ambrosia with you, that is slow.
There is a lore reason for that. She is too scared to go on the boat. So you have to do a side quest to get this item that I guess like calms her down, so she doesn't have a panic attack on the boat. So
chocobo nip. I don't think it's actually called that, but
that's essentially what it is.
Yeah.
Who found that tech, by the way? Because that was in there like in the early days.
I'm sorry, I do have one thing I do want to mention. I believe, Spef, we are at 3 pets right now, so I'm going to go ahead and start giving Torgal pets. And if it's not 3, let me know, and I will add another one.
I believe we are still at 3, but we are very close to a 4th.
All right, I'm going to keep this open for the entire run, because even after I defeat the final boss, we can do some more pets afterwards, so... But Torgal is such a good boy. Just look at this. Look at how adorable he is. All right, so there's our first 3 pets down. We're going to go ahead and start moving through this area now.
Yeah. So, one of the cool things is this DLC actually gives us a accessory that would increase the speed and distance that this Phoenix shift goes, but we just don't do enough movement for it to be justified, and it's only good for like longer segments, so we don't get to even use it in new games, since we have to come all the way to the end game to get it.
Yeah, as I alluded to earlier, there are different movement modes. This is another mode, which is we're not in a town anymore, and we don't have the chocobo, so you're able to use the iconic abilities to kind of shift around. There is an ability to sprint in this game, but if anyone's ever played Devil May Cry, it's kind of similar to that, where you kind of need a certain amount of uninterrupted running to do it. Oftentimes we don't get that because they've got all these pesky mobs in the way. So yeah, you'll see the various different forms of hopping and bursting into flames and flying off and all these kind of things. Quite a lot of movement options. They all kind of save. There is a priority order, but a lot of it's to do with like the geometry of the ground that you're running on, and particularly slopes. Clive gets very upset if you try to use an ability and land on a slope. He gets very upset and he has a little tantrum, and he's not moving when he has that tantrum. So
the reality
try to avoid
is
that.
A lot of stuff has a ton of ending lag. So we're basically targeting things that don't have that ending lag. The thing is, since I do a lot of story, once we get ambrosia, that is going to be our key movement for a lot of longer segments. So, like this, honestly, this movement is new to me. I have not seen most of it, and it's quite enjoyable to watch, actually.
I'm also using Torgal in these combat scenes for a particular reason, because it lets me do these unlocked lunges right here, which is also kind of a cool movement tech thing. So. Torgal, very helpful.
Best dog.
Normally in story, Torgal and your NPCs can be very cursed because they'll knock enemies away from you while you're trying to finish them off. But yeah, you'd be surprised what you can do if you actually know all of the game's mechanics. Luckily, we're almost to town here. Well, luckily for MBW, because then he actually gets a little bit of a rest. all this movement tech back to back to back. Ignition's a pretty nice movement tech, but we also want to try and cancel it right before that last slash so we don't lose too much time to the ending lag, but you can get a little bit greedy with it because the timing for it's kind of hard if you want to get the most out of Ignition. Ignition's unironically a very strong move that we use in story. I wouldn't be surprised if it sees a lot of use here too, because it's good at grouping enemies and finishing them off fairly efficiently while building a nice chunk of limit too.
Pretty much the only thing Ignition doesn't do is make you a cup of coffee. I mean, it's movement tech, it's crowd control, it's AoE, it's damage, it's everything.
The only downside is it's definitely, it requires some skill, which I lack. So there's a lot of times I circle around one enemy in the center and I'm just like, look, just make the turn a little bit tighter, a little bit. Okay, fine. I'll figure it out. Thanks, game.
Nice when the game gives you a tech that has so much utility to it.
Yeah, casually I used Will-O-Wisps and didn't really use Ignition that much. So luckily, casually, I used the opposite of what the speed tech was, so I got to kind of experience everything. Speaking of abilities too, we actually normally in a new game run we really don't have a lot of AP to buy stuff, so we have to kind of buy things as we go. But one of the cool things with one of the more recent updates is you actually can set up several different skills on different setups. So we're actually going to be cycling through quite a few here to have a lot more optimized movement for movement like this and combat in general.
Oh. Got lost in my buttons a little bit. That's okay.
Yeah.
It was bound to happen sooner or later.
You'd be surprised how easy it is to get lost with the movement in this game, because there's a lot of 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4 inputs, and all it takes is a second distraction. The next thing you know, you're across the map trying to fight an enemy that you didn't even know existed.
Yeah, and the movements that you...
Oh, hey, Tomberries.
Yeah. I was actually discussing this as one of the donation incentives with MBW before we started. He's like, oh yeah, I added the Tomberry King. I was like, that's great. Oh, those things are super cursed. He's like, no, they're cute. I'm like, we're gonna have to agree to disagree here.
I believe I said they're little guys, which is a fair assessment in my opinion.
That is definitely a description that is valid.
Speaking of which, Spef, we're just going to be moving for a little while longer here. Do you have any updates for us on anything?
Absolutely. And as a side note, chat, donate. Tomberry, cute or cursed? We have $25 from Seriously Surly, who say, pet the good boy. Have a blast. And that went towards petting Torgal. We also had $50 towards petting Torgal from Truegrave9 that just said, pet that Torgal. Thank you, everyone, for so much love for the goodest boy.
It's what prevents the surge from being
Oh, and we had $10 from Anonymous, who said pets for the goodest boy and dangerous pets for the stabby turtle. Yes, let's give some danger pets to the stabby turtle and get those donations in for Fight the Tonberry King. We are at $165 out of the $1,000 we need. I know we can make it. We've got this whole run to meet it. Let's get those donations in.
Hey, the Tomberry's not bad. He's just drawn that.
The problem is, since you and I both do a lot of Final Fantasy VII, the Tonberries in 7 are just adorable. And the redesign of these are off-putting when you go from the very stylized, cutesy little Tonberries to more human-sized. You're just like, what is that? Is that my nightmare? Did I fall asleep?
Full on Dark Souls stuff, you know? It's like a Soulsbury.
Fell out of a Final Fantasy Origins into 16.
Yeah.
So I'm coming up on the actual first combat of the run, and this is one of the reasons why I do the run on a New Game Plus file. Interestingly enough, on the boards, we don't separate New Game to New Game Plus because there's not a lot of differences. It's both endgame, so the fact that I'm level 60 doesn't really matter that much. But this fight I'm about to do, if you do it on a new game file, it acts as a tutorial for the Leviathan icon, which we should probably talk about what icons are now that we're getting to combat. But the thing is, I don't have to do it as a tutorial on a New Game Plus file, which is much, much better, in my opinion. So, and here we go.
Yeah, icons are, I mean, they're essentially your abilities. So throughout the game, as you meet the different icons, these like lords or gods or like creatures that kind of manage the various cities, like they're kind of like their war
Guardian
power, if you
spirits,
guardian power, like because it's basically a bunch of warring countries. You know, generalizing the story there a little bit, and Clive has the ability to essentially take on their powers and basically absorb a piece of it, and so he's able to call upon that. And so, you know, you can use 3 at a time. We've got, looks like Phoenix. We're actually using Leviathan power, and then I think it's Odin, as I'm seeing there in the icons in the little toolbar there. And you can swap between them pretty freely. And a lot of the combat rotation is basically going to be kind of cycling through abilities and your techniques. And just kind of like going through like a gameplay loop of like cooldowns, because as you use these abilities, they are going to cool down, and there'll be like time before you can use them again. So a lot of the fights are like managing that properly, and some of that does persist from battle to battle too. So you have to be very careful with that.
The cooldown management's incredibly important. We either pick moves that have very slow, very quick cooldown so that we can spam them, or we pick moves based on whether they can clear enemies very quickly or not. Like the one you saw, Flames of Rebirth, is a 2-minute cooldown, but it more or less clears every fight in a pretty fast and efficient manner. But if you have a long period of time, or one of the interesting things is bosses will have cutscenes in between phases sometimes. And the cool thing about that is, like, if you use a strength potion, there's only a certain amount of time that it's effective. That timer will not decrement, but the cooldowns will constantly be refreshing during those cutscenes. So it's an optimization that we use a lot in story mode to use things like Giga Flare, which is an incredibly powerful attack, but takes 60 seconds to recharge. So there's some fights where we just Giga Flare, goes into a cutscene, then we have it back by the end of the boss fight. So a lot of it is ordering those things in a very efficient manner. We're on New Game Plus action, which is normal, more or less. But this DLC is only open right before the final boss, so most players will only go in at the very lowest 50, something like that, because you have to clear the DLC before you get access. And both the DLCs add 5 levels to your cap. Even casually, like I maxed out because I was considering doing the Final Fantasy 50, which is hard mode, but at the base level rather than maxing out. So we're really not overpowered. The only thing we have is access to every ability, so that we were able to preset it up and min-max on those high damage, long cooldown, and high damage, short cooldown, so that we can get through the fight as quickly as possible.
It's kind of interesting because while this game is, quite infamously an action game, the way that we use the abilities and the fact that they're all tied to cooldowns has almost like an MMO style rotation to it, which I guess when you consider its origins as a team that built it, that makes sense. So what you'll find in the speedrun, and it's kind of something that you won't notice unless it's kind of pointed out to you, which is where the fights, you want to get these cooldowns cycling at the right rate, and if an ability comes off cooldown at the wrong time, or it's not available when you think it's going to be available, the wheels can kind of come off and it becomes a bit of a domino effect. So a lot of the execution in these boss fights, because it may look like, just absolutely blasting through the bosses, but a lot of the time it is actually quite precise as to which abilities you've got to use in the right order, and then it's remembering backup upon backup. So there is quite a lot of nuance to it.
One of the really big killers too is if you kind of miss input and then use like Flames of Rebirth, like I said, that has a 2-minute cooldown, the fight can spiral pretty quickly. As long as you can make it through the fight, however, you can always just load, because almost every fight, if not every fight, gives you a quick save right after it. And if you load a quick save, it'll actually refresh your cooldowns. It's something we use a lot more in New Game. but it is a fixer depending on what misinputs we make, if we make any at all.
Yeah, and it can also be used to basically load up all of the ultimate abilities. Each icon has got like an ultimate ability, which is just a lot stronger than the others, and as Sid alluded to, they got a long cooldown. It is possible to load an autosave and just unload every single ultimate in a row on a boss. But as you kind of get later into the game, it becomes a little bit less viable because the bosses have got more HP.
Yep.
We're coming up on that combat sequence, so maybe before we get fully into that, Spef, do you have anything else for us?
Yes, the Fight the Poundberry King incentive is now at $265 out of $1,000, so we are just over a quarter of the way there. Keep getting those donations in. Donations like $100 from Ro, who said, "This goes out to my sister, who was directly impacted by the hurricane in Asheville. She is the realest person I know. Shoutouts to her and everyone else working to help their communities get through these disasters." Thank you so much for that generous donation to Direct Relief.
Well, these Tomberries are having a bad time, eh?
Yeah. So in any other category, you'd usually use Gungnir, Rift Slip, or one of the other abilities. And what we're actually using there is the what's the name of it off the top of my head?
Dancing
Steel. We actually have an accessory that massively increases the Zen Ketsusen build on it. The thing is, Zan is what a lot of us call it for short, is that hits like a truck when it's at level 5. A lot of people don't understand Odin. The trick is you want to use Odin's abilities to build up to a level 5. Normally I believe it's capped at 2 or 3. It doesn't really hit very hard until you level up Arm of Darkness, but the abilities build up to level 5, and then when you change into the icon mode, it'll actually swap your sword out, which we have been doing on and off for optimal movement, like right here. You'll see that little meter off to the side that says 5. If we hold a charged attack, it'll actually release a screen-wide attack that hits like just an absolute truck. So building our Zan meter will be extremely important for optimizing our damage, especially when we get an enemy in stagger. So we go out of our way to put Pole of Darkness on, which will increase that build, versus a damage boosting accessory, which there are a ton of in the game. It's actually surprising. We're going with Genji Gloves, which I believe is 10%. It might be 5 since it's not upgraded. The Assailment bit, which will increase the damage multiplier when an enemy is in a staggered state. So instead of being capped at 1.6, we can go up to 2. Talk about that a little bit more at boss fight. The Pull of Darkness over the Giga Flare accessory is really interesting to me, though, because Giga Flare has an accessory that'll drop its cooldown by another 6 seconds. So Giga Flare pretty much comes back online every 52 seconds, which massively increases its damage output. There's a lot of good accessories in this game, so I could see a lot of thought would have to go into routing them for sure.
Yeah, the net result is this most cursed of all Tomberries is not really doing its job very well as a boss, kind of making short work of it, really. But yeah, this is the Master Tomberry, not the King. The King's well, a little bit more pizzazz than this guy, but yeah, he's a big old Tomberry.
You part fish. I see a tail.
Oh yeah, yeah.
They make wet noises too. It's kind of odd. I don't know how else to describe it.
Yeah, so it's very fishy.
It is a little fishy.
On a side go ahead.
Coming up here is actually probably my favorite. I think it's coming up here. Maybe it's the next corner. Very soon, anyway. It's my favorite Vista in the game. I mean, 16's, as you can see, a pretty detailed game, and this DLC in particular is full of really fantastical kind of style vistas. And yeah, there's one coming up with a lot of frozen in time water, which is real cool.
A skippable fight? What is this madness? I will say the one nice thing that 16 does, like since I speedrun both Remake, Rebirth, and 16, Remake and Rebirth, because of the ATB system, it's kind of similar to this, but you can very easily get knocked out of your moves and lose your ability to attack. Meanwhile, with 16, 90% of the enemies will either stop you from doing the move, or will you'll be able to phase tank through it with super armor. There are a few that will cancel your move and put it on cooldown, but for the most part, you don't get punished nearly as hard as you do in the 7 action series, which I really feel is like one of the nice things. Because when your move gets canceled and it gets put on cooldown without using it, it just feels bad.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that contributes to the MMO style feel of it, because in an MMO, for example, you use a move, you don't expect it to get cancelled out of it. It's the same thing with 16 for the most part. So it allows you to kind of come up with your own rotations. And also, because you can equip 3 icons at the same time, they can be kind of thought of as stances. And you can equip whichever move you want for each icon, but it basically means you've got 6 that you can access at any given time. And it's quite a satisfying gameplay loop, and it does allow for some pretty inventive routing in the speedrun context, which does involve quite a lot of large laser cannons in the end game.
That's actually part of the reason why New Game Plus is so important. In New Game, you barely have enough AP to buy the abilities you want and upgrade them so they do more damage. But there's one further tier, which is Master, which will allow you to put on any icon. So functionally in New Game Plus, because you can grind all the AP you possibly need, you can pick up all the abilities that you want, master them out, and then you can set up whichever icon, which allows you to be able to use Odin, which is normally not too good because he doesn't have damage abilities, and it costs a lot of ability to master. Oh, this little fella.
So this is kind of a throwback to the beginning of the main game. So the very first sort of boss that you fight out in the wild is a version of this boss called, I think, is it Nidhogg? I think it's Nidhogg.
Nidhogg. It's Fenrir.
Yeah.
Is it?
Oh, it's Nidhogg.
It's Fafnir.
Go ahead. Ignore me.
Fafnir.
Fafnir.
It's Fafnir. Yeah, yep. Fafnir. There you go.
But it's 2 of them.
Yeah. So it's called Fafnir of the North, and we are in the North. So this is what the Fafnir in its sort of natural habitat looks like, which is kind of just a cool throwback, I guess. The boss itself does a lot of same moves, but then it drops these like puddles, which I think do damage, but to be honest, at this point in the game, this is kind of like a nice sort of easy introduction to the DLC, what it's meant to be. So the damage that the boss outputs isn't too high, but these little puddles are meant to damage you.
Nice.
I'm on a backup right now. Whoop.
Yeah.
So the one nice thing about Bahamut, it's an extremely defensive icon, but if you manage to dodge while you're in the wing up phase there, you actually get these little mega flares, and it can top off at level 4, I believe. The only thing that the level affects is how long these mega flares are dropping down, but it's a little bit too defensive for it to be used extremely often. Normally, you want to get like 1 and then instantly cancel, and then just go into your normal rotation. One of the other things too is we're micromanaging our limit as well. It's both an offensive boost, but it also gives us permanent super armor, and it prevents us from dying. So with limit, we have to kind of ration it in a way. Normally in New Game, we basically are usually looking for either the super armor or the damage to get through a boss. But since we actually have 4 bars here, we have a lot longer in terms of limit, so it can do a lot more work, but we also can't just use it when we're in panic mode because we need the extra damage, and in a lot of cases, the super armor, so that we can continually just plow through the final phase of a boss fight like we did there.
That second phase there, that last phase, I think was kind of how the first phase was meant to go. So there was a backup that was done on the first one. The second one, there's a mechanic in this game called parrying, which is, I know, invented name, right? But where in this game, when you parry a boss, time slows, and then all damage they take goes up by 10%. So you can actually stack that on top of each other. And there's this big like roll up Sonic style attack that boss in particular does. Using Limit Break, one of the other features of the Limit Break is that it's very easy to parry attacks with it. It's got a very wide parry window. So it was used there to parry the boss out the attack, and then kind of like for the burst damage at the end.
Yeah.
So
I wanted to get a parry earlier. That was kind of why I was in backup mode, is I wasn't able to parry it out of that toxic spin ability. Whoops.
You got to show it up in the end anyway.
You can do it normally with like Burning Blade charged attack, but the fact is you only have one bite at the apple with that. But with with the limit, it actually gives you super armor, so you can just kind of spam. So it just really increases your chance of hitting that parry window, which is honestly a pretty high skill check. And in some people's, opinion, it's a little bit worse than it should be, but parrying is a very important part of the game, and it can be very difficult to hit. So luckily we have a lot more limit than in New Game, because in New Game we really can't afford to throw our limit out for that. Because you can cancel your limit early, but the game will eat the entire bar that you're currently on. Oof.
Sorry, I forgot to change ability sets, so I'm just clearing these guys like a normal casual player would. So
I can't blame you. I've done that a few times before. I go into like one of the boss fights, and I'm like, I should have Phoenix Wing, and I'm like, Flames of Rebirth. Why are you? Oh no.
Yeah.
No. We call that routing a backup on the fly. That's what we call that.
Yeah. So the one nice thing, since we have all the abilities too, this comes with a preset for each one of the. I think you have like 6 or so. So in New Game, you can preset your abilities and icons, so you can really quickly change it between them. You only really get to use it at the very, very beginning of a New Game run, because you only have the Phoenix icon. The unfortunate part is it doesn't auto-fill in the icon windows when you get it. Like, they all just are one Phoenix plus blank, Phoenix plus blank. So we don't really get to take advantage of it in New Game versus New Game Plus. Just those nice little quality of life things that make this a lot more fun.
Yeah, I think the sum of that really is that it means that in New Game, I mean, this is technically a New Game Plus run, but because it's a DLC run, the expectation is that you're at the end game anyway, so it doesn't make a huge difference apart from the tutorial at the beginning. But the upshot of it all is that you have a lot more tools available to you, and because of the cooldown system, you actually do need to vary your tools. In some games it could be you find the optimal ability and spam it. In 16 there is a little bit of that, but sort of like a little bit of A, a little bit of B. You kind of want to structure things, and it changes per fight as well. Like here there's multiple waves, so there's a screen wipe that was used there in terms of Zantetsuken, and looks like we're going for another Zantetsuken actually here as well.
Yep.
That's definitely something that I kind of glossed over, actually. One of the things you could do here, like I said, loading your autosaves when you clear combat can also be used to reset your cooldowns. But in this instance, since we have so many moves, we could just change skill sets in between fights so that we have access to a whole new set of moves that'll clear everything. Like, we could get creative and maybe even use, like, Titan's finisher. Used to be pretty awful because the cooldown was extremely slow. They sped it up a little bit, but like there's a lot of innovative stuff you can do with New Game Plus where you can manage cooldowns in a lot more of an efficient and interesting manner versus New Game, where it's just like, well, I gotta make sure that my 2-second cooldown move is ready.
Oh, but there's one more.
Yeah, I've done
Random
that before
spider.
too, where I'm like, what? All right, charge magic, go.
Hello, I just wanted to hop in and let you know, I forgot to mention before, we do have one additional pet for Torgal that was unlocked via a $250 anonymous donation with no comment. So whenever you have the chance to do that, which may be in a while, that's totally fine. I'll just let you know.
I think I'll do it before the next boss fight. So yeah, plenty more of time to pet Torgal for sure. So.
Yeah,
and here's speaking of pets, there's another cursed Tomberry, and I think is it Tomberry's pet? It's occurred to me that curl's meant to be maybe the Tomberry's pet. Interesting.
It won't be for long.
No, indeed.
A lot of these enemies, we're definitely making look a fool, to be quite blunt. The last time when I did this casually, these are not as easy as you would think. And just to be clear, even though we're on New Game Plus with action, it's more so just to set up all our stuff ahead of time so that it speeds up a few fights, and it allows us to show more variety of combo lines quicker. rather than having to waste a bunch of time swapping out stuff or waiting for cooldowns. It basically just yields more explosive combat, but the difficulty is 100% still there. The extra 5 levels really doesn't mean a lot at the end of the day.
Yep.
It also allows us to, one of the other things too is we actually changed up our potions as well, and we also have the max. The big game breaker is like the Omega weapon, and even that is like, we got it from the last DLC, so we're like an extra 30 strength or something, versus like not doing the side quest for it. It's not a huge amount.
Torgal, come over here so I can pet you.
Torgal, please.
Oh, he's all into the lightning rod, actually.
Yeah, he's mesmerized by the rod.
Yeah, they count as enemies, so...
I hate lightning rod. I hate that effect of lightning rod so much. The fact that the game like automatically considers lightning rod a targetable thing, I just...
Okay, we'll pet Torgal later. He doesn't want to get pets right now.
He's a lot of time in the dungeon. He's unpettable. It's really weird.
That's true. Yep.
Action,
so we're going to fight
mode
this guy who is just kind of awful.
Yeah,
also a bit of a Souls boss in my opinion. This is very, very Souls-like boss.
Yeah.
I've actually had to fight this boss twice, even though I only did the DLC once. I finished this fight, and I guess like I did all my DLC runs on autosaves, and I had to go do something right after I finished it, but didn't let the cutscene play. So I came back and realized the autosave was right before the boss, and I'm like, well, I guess I'm doing this twice.
Oh no.
This was really fun to do twice. The one thing that's very interesting about this game, for better or worse, is there's a lot of autosaves in it. So even if you die in the middle of a boss fight, it's good for like a speed run aspect that you get restarted at a certain checkpoint in the boss fight, and not only that, but they'll refund all your like healing potions. So there's a huge amount of safety in terms of a speed run. Unfortunately for practice, it's just awful because it makes practice a lot more difficult than it needs to be. Because a lot of, like we've mentioned up till now, cooldown management is incredibly important. So if you just die in the middle of a phase, your cooldowns are all going to be reset as well. So it makes it kind of hard to practice optimal fights, unfortunately. But the fact that the combat is so rewarding, it's a very big give and take with this game. There's a lot of downfalls, but there's also a lot of really cool things about it too. There's a reason I run this and the re-trilogy as well, despite the glaring differences between the two.
Then it leaves us no choice.
So earlier I was talking about a zone that I like. This is the lead up to this boss arena was the zone. I think the stasis and stuff in the air is really cool, like all the frozen rocks. There's a frozen tidal wave as well that I think we sort of had a glimpse of earlier, but we'll see more of it in a little bit. I think lore-wise, the Timekeeper is a aspected to Shiva, the ice icon, in case anyone didn't know, because he freezes time. I don't know if that counts as a visual pun. Does that count as a visual pun? Maybe, but it does lend itself to some pretty cool mechanics in this fight, which we're going to see soon.
Yep.
I think.
There's why I hate Lightning Rod. So the game likes to auto lock onto Lightning Rod, and the first thing it'll lock onto is Lightning Rod. So you'll see a lot of newer runners, including myself, struggle with Lightning Rod kind of sucking your attacks. It can be quite a challenge to get used to. But yeah, the visuals in this game are top tier, just top tier. That is one of the things it does extremely good. Unfortunately, some of the like alts, like Garuda's alt, does Aerial Blast, which is just horrendous visual pollution. Luckily, not everything in the game is that bad. Fortunately, Aerial Blast really just isn't that good, so we don't have to put up with it. One of the things that's actually interesting is Lightning Rod you see used a lot with Giga Flare. Lightning Rod's most efficient way is to actually set it up so that the enemy hits it, because it does a lot more damage and stagger if the enemy hits it rather than you. So baiting enemies into hurting themselves with Lightning Rod is a very important factor of it. If we can get away with it, we usually like to set up Lightning Rod in such a way that the enemy hits it, and then we hit them with Giga Beam as well, so we min-max on that. But it's, with Timekeeper, it's not very easy to do because he's very quick.
Yeah, and if he's not being quick, he's literally freezing you in in the same spot. So like here. So yeah, it's kind of like, let's get out of this.
A lot of these feel like Bahamut bait, honestly. It's like, hey, you want to dodge for Mega Flares? Huh? No, I don't think I will. Luckily, Mega Flare used to be very hard to set up, honestly, in the past. The dodge timing for it was a lot tighter, and the initial transformation actually wouldn't dodge projectiles, but they changed that now. The most up-to-date version of this game is a lot more friendly than it used to be, to the point where a lot more of it's in favor of the player. So casually, you can get into a lot of these more high-tier mechanics without having to fight quite as much.
Yeah, I think Mega Flare is kind of one of those abilities that is nice to have. So the game sort of separates them into what are called iconic feats and iconic abilities. So the big Kamehameha wave is actually Giga Flare, which not to be confused with Mega Flare. Mega Flare itself is kind of like this dodge, kind of like it's a special kind of dodge, which allows you to shoot all these beams up into the air, and then it comes down later on as a damage over time. It's very helpful for some bosses. There are some bosses where they might do an attack which the hitbox lasts for quite a while, and in Mega Flare you get a couple of iframes after you complete a dodge. So what happens is you enter a stance, dodge, you gain a level in Mega Flare, you get a couple of iframes so you can dodge again, and you can end up with a maximum power Mega Flare very, very quickly. It's a fast thing to do, but yeah, Timekeeper doesn't quite play ball with that, so we stick with the regular the regular laser cannons.
Yeah, that was not looking good.
Oh no.
Yeah,
This is
I ran
the
out
down.
of potions, so we'll just do the last little bit of the fight here. That was too bad. He only had a little sliver of life left.
This is the downside of running the setup the way we did. Normally we have potions, high potions, and strength potions, so it's fairly hard to die in new game. But we want to use Lionheart tonics to get the limit gain boost off of it, so we got to run a little bit more tight here. But luckily, though, since it's New Game Plus, we can also get the potion upgrades, which normally we would be deathly allergic to because the side quests are extremely long in the standard gameplay, which allows us to carry more high potions and actually increases the efficacy of them too. So it more or less offsets having less potions, but the bigger issue is that we're really not going to be able to use them too much in dungeons, because normally in standard gameplay, the dungeons just hand out potions like after every fight. So you can get away with using potions pretty often, or just use those to auto heal after pretty much every fight. But high potions are a little bit less common, and we're not going to be going by vendors anytime soon, so we really can't be we don't need to be, we need to be somewhat frugal, but we also don't want to spam them either, or else we'll run out really quick.
Let's go ahead and give spef a chance here while I finish this off again.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. Parrot Fox sent in $25 to Direct Relief and said, "Pet the Tonberry King." Wait, no, I meant pet the Torgal. Yeah. Keep up the great run. Love seeing this epic DLC in action. And that got us closer to a 5th pet for Torgal. We still have that 4th that we're waiting on. We also had $50 come in from T Amazing Random that said, "You guys rule. It's wonderful that you're doing this, and I love how quickly you got it off the ground." Thank you so much. And we had $150 donated by Anonymous, who said, "Fight, fight, 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 fight." And that all went towards fighting the Tonberry King, and we are almost halfway to that $1,000 we need to see that by the end of the run. So please keep getting those donations in. I know we can do it. Let's see that fight.
Magic.
I cannot put into words how annoying he is being right now.
I'm not
He
sure.
just needs.
There.
There we go. You just needed one more hit.
It's just when he starts
yeah.
jumping around again. So
Yeah.
That's why.
And in fairness, this boss is probably, I would say, maybe arguably more difficult than the final boss of the main game.
Oh, 100%. I would
his-
say Ultima 1 is more difficult than Ultima 2 in my opinion because of the massive cutscenes. You get like all your cooldowns. I don't know if you know this, MBW, but you can actually cancel out of windup if you use the X button, I think it is, instead of throwing it out. It's something I've started to have to use a lot more because I wind up at nothing and I'm like, oh, no, I don't want to use this. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Some of the moves actually let you cancel. It's nice.
And now coming up is what I think is the actually, casually anyway, the most difficult boss. No, not here actually. The next boss fight that we come up against is what I think is the, casually at least, the most difficult boss in the entire game. Which
I
is,
do have one little mini fight before we get there, but yeah.
it's interesting because I think all the icon fights until this one coming up are kind of free, pretty much. And then this one, just out of nowhere, this goes, no, this is the real deal. Like, you can die here, you probably will die here.
I mean, yeah, I think I had learned most of the speedrun before I got to Leviathan, and I still got smoked casually. The bosses and the icon fights in this game are pretty generous because they start you off with 30-40% heals. But I think most people die to Leviathan, honestly. It's, it is a beast.
If you fought Leviathan first time blind and did not game over once, then hats off to you. That's some seriously impressive stuff.
You're a gamer.
You're a true gamer, yeah.
That was too close.
Yeah.
I'm kind of just in the run-up right here. There really isn't much I can do. It's kind of just a cinematic scene here. So, Spef, you got anything else for us before we start fighting the danger noodle here?
Absolutely. We have some support coming in for you from these donations. We have $50 with no comment from Blaze Mom. We also have $50 from Jennifer Bott that says, "Hey, Uncle Moonblazewolf, this is your nephew. We love you."
Oh, thank
Come
you.
on then.
I just wanted to mention really quick because I didn't know they were going to donate, but my family is in Florida and was somewhat in the path of the most recent hurricane. So really means a lot to me that I can do this run and help raise money for them. So go ahead, Spef. Sorry, I just wanted to mention that really quick.
No worries, and that's incredible. We also had $104.26 donated by Anonymous that says, "Our daughter wanted to donate her money to help those affected by the hurricanes, but also to pet the dog. So we all chipped in to earn Torgal another pet." So we are less than $50 away from a 5th pet for Torgal. So get those donations in and we can keep those pets coming.
Wonderful. All right, and we are jumping right into the Leviathan fight here, so I'm going to need major focus time while the combat's actually going on.
The iconic fights in the game are kind of... but Leviathan is several tiers above the rest for sure.
Yeah, this first phase of the fight is actually quite important for the speedrun because if enough damage is done here, it allows a skip in the second phase, which hopefully we can land. The thing is, the attack patterns from Leviathan are some sort of, it's random in the order in which they come out. The actual attack patterns themselves, once they do come out, you can you sort of know what's coming, but the order is not always the same. So yeah, hopefully we'll see.
This is pretty similar to like the Titan fight. If I kind of had to pick one, you have to struggle with like the hitboxes here, and a lot of time you are just kind of out of options because Titan's too far away, or Leviathan's too far away. And the hitboxes are a little bit weird here, so you have to work pretty hard to make contact, even with auto targeting.
Yeah, a headshot actually does matter in this fight. Leviathan does take, I think it's 10% more damage for blows to the head. So if the damage numbers are yellow, there aren't actually, interestingly, in considering it's a Final Fantasy game, there aren't actually critical hits in this game. There are just precision precision hits, which is what's landing here. So if you see the yellow text, it's not a crit. It's because they're hitting her in the head. Hitting Leviathan other parts of their body would do a yellow damage numbers, which obviously we want to avoid.
I will say here, normally some of the combos are very easy to finish off with magic. In my opinion, the aerial finisher is one of the hardest ones because the timing is so weird. The grounded combos are not too bad, but trying to get aerial burst finishes are a struggle.
I was able to skip the grand fall though, so this fight has 5 distinct phases. It is a pretty long, pretty cinematic fight. That phase 1 is one of the ones where we can kind of, if we do good enough, like people were saying, we can skip ahead a little bit. So that's exactly what happened. So that's good. I feel good about that.
Yeah,
nice.
the iconic fights push you quite a bit.
Yeah, this one in particular. The grand fall skip is, I would say, is it maybe a 40, 45 second save?
It's quite a bit. It's at least 20 or 30 seconds, yeah, because it has a long animation and then you have to just sit there and dodge a bunch of projectiles. So yeah, 30 seconds at least, I would say.
Yeah, a lot of the main run is skips like that, and it's oh cool, I saved 30 seconds here. Hope I don't lose it to the next silly thing that I've got to skip.
Yep. This is also a really hard spit flare I'm going to do right here because I need to do it for my cooldowns, but it's really hard to hit him with all of the spots. So that was pretty good.
So as you saw there, some of the numbers were yellow, some were white. It's only about 10% damage difference, but it's pretty difficult when Leviathan goes that far away. I mean, landing the Spitfire at all is the priority there, really.
Honestly, our strength potions are 10%. So that 10% sounds very minuscule, but once you start adding it up, you realize how impactful it actually is. So 16 is very skill intensive in that way.
Another thing that I'm going to be doing a lot of is I'm going to be doing these charged magic shots whenever he's far away. Those do a good amount of damage and also a good amount of will damage. So it's kind of chipping away as best I can during the parts where I don't really have a good way of interacting with him.
Yeah, one of the nice parts about this too is we actually get fully upgraded charge as well. Because once you first learn charge, it takes a long time to charge magic. But once you get it leveled up, it actually charges fairly quick. That's a nice thing about it. As long as we're looking at either the hand, we can tell when it fully charges because it'll do a little animation. Or you can also be looking at the fireball, and it'll change from fireball to fireball. But once you run long enough, you kind of get a feeling for the timing for the most part. The real difficult part is in new game, you really have to do a lot of charge magic. And sometimes, if you're not mindful about it, you'll actually make it so you can't do iconic attacks. But the real hard part is holding it while doing normal combos, since triangle and square are right next to each other. So a lot of us have to change our actual control scheme to make that work. So it is kind of an unstated thing that charging magic as icon usually isn't that bad because you're not really doing anything else besides the fireballs, but trying to do it in normal combat is a big struggle.
I don't know about anyone else, but I kind of feel it was a missed opportunity to not let you cast Viraga as Ifrit.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because you can only ever cast the second level spells as Clive. You can cast Viraga during a very brief sequence where you play as Joshua at the start of the game, but yeah, I always thought it was a missed opportunity.
To be fair, if Viraga did the same thing as it does to Joshua, you would never want to use it. When you do get it early game, it causes a very long cooldown when you cast it. And
well, in fairness, Joshua is 8 years old.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah. It's kind of one of those things. So the purple phase here is interesting. We're not really going to be doing any damage, but we want to end this ASAP. So the trick here is to push through enough damage while not getting. Go ahead.
Well, yeah, this phase casually, I think, is the one that will pretty much game over almost everybody who plays it for the first time.
Yep.
In every other fight in the game, pretty much, where there is a purple phase, it is pretty trivial to clear the DPS check. That is not the case with this one. If you are sloppy at all, you will be hit with Tsunami and it will give you a game over.
Yeah.
So you really do need to be quite diligent on using all of your abilities off cooldown, keeping the damage up as much as possible, and dodging the projectiles. If done right, so you can see that the MBW is sort of pushed back. If you do this as optimally as possible, it's possible to shatter the shield with only having been pushed back once, but it is incredibly tight. So let's see if they can manage it this time. It's quite an impressive thing to be able to do it. It's not a consistent thing to be able to do, so hopefully.
Yeah, because like this will kill you, period, regardless of how much HP you have. The other ones won't. They'll just put you pretty close or kill you if you're at like 50% HP. This will one-shot you, period. There's no two ways about it. You can't let it resolve.
Yeah, because you can survive the attack if you spam Firelight, which is the healing, but the idea is that it hits the village behind you, which cannot survive the attack. So that's where the game over comes from. It's getting pretty close.
The downside...
So close.
Oh, no.
The downside, too, is we're also regular Ifrit. If you play through the game normally, towards the end of the game, you're used to having Risen Ifrit, which is another like story thing. So we're kind of handicapped with the amount of strength that Ifrit normally would have at this point in the game, since we're still standard. So we're a little bit weaker. Normally we'd have Shift instead of the Charge move here, which would allow us to move closer much quicker. So it makes... go ahead.
Light speed would be hella helpful in that phase, yep, for sure.
just get right in there, not get shoved back every 5 seconds. Ooh, yeah, the moves on Leviathan hit like a truck too. This is a very difficult DLC. It's like we've been saying the entire time. New Game Plus does not mean much here outside of just being able to optimize our equipment and set up so that it just allows us to show off some more interesting and quick combat rather than fiddling about with like one setup and having to juggle abilities and things like that. The 5 levels really doesn't mean much.
That move, Maelstrom, is quite difficult to avoid taking damage. You pretty much, the way that I think people would do it casually is to leap in the air and use one of Ifrit's abilities, Brimstone, but we want to use those abilities purely for damage. So yeah, a lot of the time you're just going to see MEW try and heal through it.
The abilities can be used in defensive ways, but in a speedrun you'll rarely ever see that because the cooldowns are so important to keep in that loop that you're almost usually better off just dying to whatever, resetting, restarting the phase of whatever fight you're on, and then just being like, well, that's cool, but I have everything on cooldown. It only really ever is a kick in the teeth when you're precisely managing the will bar to get staggers. The will bar / stagger bar is more or less the same if you've only ever played like Remake Rebirth. It's the same thing, except you can't use like Tifa to get the multiplier up to like 300%. We're usually capped at 1.6 times multiplier, but we actually have an accessory that bumps it up to 2 times. But you only get that in the first DLC, actually, towards the very, very end of it. Unfortunately, it's kind of hard to get that 2 times multiplier during iconic phases because we don't really have a lot of abilities to spam. That's part of the reason
there's only 2.
Yeah. That's part of the reason why the iconic fights are so difficult. You only have the 2 abilities. You can't change them. And for a new game run, they're doled out pretty sparingly throughout the course of the game. New Game Plus is kind of weird where it's like, I think they just give you both when you learn Brimstone? Is that how it works?
No, so in New Game Plus, you have both straight away. So in the Garuda fight, you don't have full control of Ifrit, so you can't use any abilities. But then the very first fight where you can theoretically use abilities, which is Typhon, where you have 0 abilities. Normally, in New Game Plus, you have both. So you can just spit flare Titan and Typhon, and that Typhon has a very bad day when you use that move.
Yeah.
Because obviously it's not tuned to be able to take that attack, so like Typhon just melts, which kind of skips the boss.
Got to take the W's where you can get them because the game doesn't give them out very often.
Not massively. This phase here is pretty much it's almost like an enrage to continue with the MMO metaphor a little bit. So Leviathan does not have a whole lot of chill at this point. They
no.
thick and fast.
I think I'm okay. We'll see. Nope. Hold on. I'm still okay. I'm still okay.
You're not dead yet.
Yeah, this fight's pretty rough. So getting a no death is honestly pretty rough. The other thing too is like normally we'd be trying to avoid like getting the precision dodges, especially since we don't really make use of the animation slowdown. But with this fight, he doles out attacks just so aggressively that you really can't afford to do anything but precision dodge.
I got it.
Nice.
All right, so at this point, the fight is over. We are kind of just waiting for it to end. So, Spef, what you got for us?
I have that we are just over $500 away from fighting the Tonberry King at the end of this run. And as a note, that same amount will actually get us to a total of $12,000 raised so far for this marathon. So can we hit that $12,000 milestone? Can we fight the Tonberry King? I think we can. So chat, get those donations in as we also see the end of this incredible fight. Incredible skill shown here. Thank you so much.
I'm actually done all that I have to do. I'll call time when it's coming up, so tech, just kind of be ready on that. It's going to be on a screen where it says Leviathan tamed. We've only got like maybe a couple minutes and a couple pets to get that money for the Tonberry fight. So if anybody was waiting for the last minute, this is the last minute. Go ahead and get those donations in.
I hope we get to see it. The Tonberry King is a very interesting fight. There's actually a secret weapon that's locked behind doing that fight. You have two ultimate weapons, actually. The one that we have equipped that is pretty good for both damage and stagger. The Tonberry King actually gives a Tonberry knife, which is a unique weapon that's about half damage of everything else, but it staggers like double as much. Unfortunately, like staggers are slow in general, so we want to avoid that. Especially losing out on that much damage is just non-negotiable, but it's a very interesting looking weapon. And
really quick, time. Okay, I didn't die to Leviathan. That's good.
Yeah.
I was a little nerve-wracking. One thing I didn't want to say, because I didn't want to jinx it, is most of the fights, if you die in them, you get checkpointed to. It's not a huge deal. Like you kind of saw it with Timekeeper. Like I didn't go back that far. If you die in the Leviathan fight, it actually will always send you back to right after the purple orb phase. So you kind of have to fight two phases instead. So I'm really glad. Obviously, wanted to showcase this. Wasn't perfect, but I can put together a pretty good run of this a lot of times. A lot of the early fights were very good. I was super happy with those. So I just want to say thanks to the community. This game has a really good community. It's been a lot of fun to get involved in. I'm really passionate about this game, obviously, and I would love to see more people running it, especially now that it's out on PC. So while we are getting ready to give Torgal the final pets here, do my commentators want to give any shout outs or anything else like that?
I mean, I mainly do Remake, Rebirth, and this. Since I'm doing this for Questing for Glory, the full main game, I've been practicing it pretty heavily. Hopefully me and MBW can show this off for GDQ, because we also submitted that as well, but who knows? It's a pretty long run, so I wouldn't hold him against him for not taking it either.
We shall see. MT, what do you got?
I think I just want to shout out the FF speedrun community generally. There's kind of like got a little carved out subsection part of it, which is my entry point to speedrunning. I am mainly a Final Fantasy X speedrunner. So they're very helpful and very welcoming group of people, as are my fellow 16 speedrunners as well. And obviously, I guess a shout out to GDQ as well.
Yeah. Woadyb?
There you go.
Yeah, I mean, I want to thank you for allowing me to tag along. It was wonderful to see, without the cutscenes and just kind of all the crazy fights there. I'll have to definitely jump into this DLC. Also, shout out to the same Final Fantasy community. Welcomed me in almost about 4 years ago as a speedrunner, and still here after all these years running Final Fantasy after Final Fantasy. And I'll shameless plug as well. I'm running Rebirth at Questing for Glory myself, so we'll have some more FF7 fun for my side of things.
Yeah, for those who don't know, Questing for Glory is a kind of for fun marathon, but it is an event that a lot of us look forward to, and that's on the RPG Limit Break channel. It's coming up early November, so you can check that out. Spef, I have a very important question for you. How many more times are we petting Torgal?
We only have one more pet in the bank, so this is for all of us. The final pet.
The final pet. Here we go. Oh, that's a good one. That's like
we made
belly rubs.
contact.
Yeah. All right. And I'm guessing that we are all done here, so I'll just go ahead and end it here. Thank you again for having me. Shout outs to the tech crew that I can wave at through the window. You're all doing a great job, and I'm really happy to be here working with all of you. Please continue enjoying the rest of the event. It is really important, and the money is going to an extremely important cause. Hi. So yeah, keep watching, keep donating. There's so many good runs left this weekend. Please check it out. And yeah, thanks again for having me. Bye, everybody.